Me and Pac went in the studio and did a song together. And then them little dudes.
Outlaws.
Yeah.
Outlaws.
They came, like, as soon as we got there, they came up to Pac talking about, yo, Lauryn Hill dissed you, Mobb Deep dissed you.
It is true. Tupac, he really had an issue with Jay-Z. He really didn't like him then.
Not at all.
I think that if Pac was alive, it would have been a whole different story. And as much money as Jay-Z has, he still hasn't accomplished what Tupac accomplished before he was at 25 years old.
Big Daddy Kane just dropped a bombshell about Jay-Z and Tupac, and nobody saw this twist coming. For years, we've been told one version of the story, but Kane just cracked it wide open. Now here's the deal. Kane wasn't just some random cosign in Jay's early days. He made room for him. Jay was freestyling on stage, battling in cypher circles, while Kane put him front and center, giving him that first real shot. That's facts. No debate. But as Jay climbed the ladder to rap royalty, Kane's name quietly erased from the credits like he was never even there.
Hold up. Tupac is a lyricist. See what I'm saying? It's just that he's not one of those lyrical MCs that spit stuff, but his stuff is, he spit deep lyrics that touch your soul.
But wait, it gets deeper. Because Kane's recent comments don't just throw shade, they connect all the way back to Tupac. While Kane was out here putting Jay on in the East, Pac was busy putting the whole industry on blast. He was calling out the fakes, warning people, and yes, he threw some subliminal smoke at Jay too. So now the real question, what's Kane trying to say? Did Jay-Z just take inspiration from Kane and Pac? Or did he straight up build his empire off their blueprints and then ghost them like they never mattered? Let's break it down.
Jay-Z, I heard that no one really wanted to sign him when you were shopping him around the record labels. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This was, I want to say, I don't know, 90, 91 maybe. We was, you know, we recorded some songs, probably about 4 or 5 songs on Jay-Z, and shopped them to several different record labels, and they all passed.
Back in the early 90s, when Jay-Z was still just another hungry MC trying to make a name for himself, Big Daddy Kane was already a legend, and he didn't just co-sign Jay, he put him on his back. During his Chocolate City tour, Kane brought Jay along, letting him spit raw freestyles live on stage while he swapped outfits backstage. That wasn't just a favor. That was a spotlight most rappers would have killed for. But Kane didn't stop there. He went even harder for Jay, recording demos with him, polishing tracks, and pushing his name to major labels. Problem was, the labels weren't biting. Kane said it flat out. They didn't like Jay's style. He was too different, too sharp, too ahead of his time. Still, Kane believed. He said Jay would find his rhythm, and boy, was he right?
I remember actually having a record deal through a production deal with someone else and recording, and then the next thing you know, someone else on the label blew up.
Jay-Z evolved into a powerhouse, but here's where things start to look shady. Kane's impact on Jay's early sound, that slick, rapid-fire delivery mixed with smooth aggression, you can't deny it came from Kane's playbook. But as Jay's legend grew, his shout-outs got real quiet. In interviews, docs, and even his own memoir, Decoded, Jay gave Kane a quick nod, mentioning how he learned pacing and stage moves. But that was it. No deep credit, no emotional homage. Just a tiny mention like Kane was a footnote in his journey. And yes, Kane noticed that silence. Now here's where things get messy, real messy.
Gotta go back to Brooklyn's Finest. I was dead set against it. I was telling Jay, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And he was like, why? And I was just like, he's too strong. I said, but before we take over the world, we got to take over the West Coast. Before we take over the West Coast, we got to take over the East Coast. Before we take over the East Coast, we got to take over New York. Before we take over New York, you got to take over Brooklyn. And he owns all that. And I was like, this is not a whack. So I was just like, I was in fear that I was like, yo, you may come off like this little man. You understand?
There's a bar on Jay-Z's late 90s hit Do It Again that fans still debate today. Jay raps, I've seen the same ish happen to Kane. 3 cuts in your eyebrows trying to wild out. And if you know hip-hop history, you know exactly who that sounds like. Big Daddy Kane was famous for rocking 3 slashes in his eyebrows. It wasn't just a look, it was part of his brand. A whole era of style. So when Jay dropped that line with a slick, cold delivery, people were quick to say it was a shot at the very man who gave him his start. At the time, Kane's fame had cooled down. The spotlight had moved to younger rappers and Jay was stepping into his prime. So that line, It didn't sound like homage. It sounded like a subtle jab, a mocking reminder of a legend left behind. Even Angie Martinez reportedly called it out on air, saying it felt like a diss that only added fuel to the fire. But Kane, he kept it classy and played it cool publicly, brushing it off like it didn't faze him. Still, fans knew something felt off.
I think Pac was more upset that that word was getting back to him, that the people that did do this to him was affiliated one way or another with Biggie, whether they was extorting him or word got back that they was going to do this to Pac. So this is one of the reasons that Pac was upset.
Jay himself once admitted he used to study Kane backstage, watching how he moved, learning the game firsthand. But as Jay switched into his gangsta hustler era, Kane quietly moved out the way, letting Jay shine. And now, all these years later, Big Daddy Kane is starting to question it all. Did Jay-Z purposely leave him out of the picture? Was it strategic silence, not just forgetfulness? But Kane wasn't the only one catching on. At the very same time Kane was slowly getting pushed to the sidelines, Tupac was rising like a storm, and he was already calling out the kind of shady industry moves that Kane is now hinting at. Pac saw the switch happening, from real lyricists with depth and substance to flashy rappers chasing clout, money, and power. And yeah, Jay-Z's name was starting to buzz in that mix. Word on the streets back then, Jay felt threatened by Pac, straight up.
Big did, which I was like, that's why Pac was on Jay, because of Brooklyn's finest. If they have twins, you probably have two Pacs. Get it? Two Pacs. And Jay's on the record with him. So now he's like, you ain't no like me, Jay-Z. Then he start bombing on Jay.
There were rumors flying that Jay knew he couldn't compete with Pac's wild charisma. Pac didn't just spit bars, he had that raw magnetism, the kind of presence you can't fake or copy. Jay might have been a clever wordsmith, but Pac was a force, and eventually, that quiet tension exploded. Jay and Pac did have real beef before Pac's death, and it didn't come out of nowhere. It all started when Jay linked up with Biggie, and they both started sending subliminals at the West Coast. Jay and Big, both out of Bed-Stuy, started building a tight bond in the early 90s. By 1996, they dropped Brooklyn's Finest, one of the standout tracks off Jay's Reasonable Doubt. That track, it didn't just flex New York pride, it poured gasoline on the East versus West fire. Irv Gotti, who was deep in Jay-Z's circle at the time, later revealed he warned Jay not to put Biggie on that track. The East Coast versus West Coast beef was already a powder keg, and Irv saw it coming. One wrong move could set it all off, and teaming up with Big during that heat, that was risky business. Now rewind a bit. Pac and Biggie actually used to be cool, but everything flipped in '94 when Pac was shot 5 times in a robbery at Quad Studios. After that, Pac was never the same. He believed Biggie and Diddy knew something and didn't warn him. Whether it was true or not, Pac felt betrayed, and that cut deep. He took that personally, and he never let it go. Biggie, on his end, always denied having any part in it. He claimed he didn't know a thing, but the damage was done. That brotherhood turned into open warfare.
The story was that Jay was going to try to perform in Vegas, but Pac was in Vegas, and him and his dudes now. And they wasn't going to let Jay-Z come out the hotel. They found out where Jay was at. And Jay wasn't going to come out the hotel. He was going to miss that performance or whatever like that. Do that concert, and Jay was scared of the motherfucker. Jay wasn't coming out that hotel until he got clearance.
After that shooting, things escalated fast. Pac started firing off diss tracks. Biggie responded. The public shots turned personal. And right before Jay dropped Brooklyn's Finest, Biggie released Who Shot You? A record that only added more gas to the flames. It sounded like a taunt, even though Big said it wasn't aimed at Pac, but with East verses. West already on the edge, Irv Gotti begged Jay to think twice, dropping that song with Biggie at that moment. But Jay didn't listen. He dropped Brooklyn's Finest anyway, and that move, it blew the tension wide open. Biggie's verse went straight at Pac, calling him his son and throwing shade about the Faith Evans rumors that were already making headlines. That didn't sit right with Pac at all. He clapped back instantly, dropping shots at Jay-Z on tracks like Bomb First, My Second Reply, and FM's Friends. Pac made it crystal clear Jay was on his radar now. Fans started buzzing, waiting for Jay to return fire with a full-blown diss track of his own. But the response never came, because just weeks later, Pac was gunned down in a drive-by in Las Vegas. And just like that, the war ended in tragedy. But here's the twist that most people don't know. Jay did write a response track, a brutal one. It was called Scathing, and according to insiders, it was filled with venom aimed directly at Pac. Jay held it back while Pac was alive, supposedly because he didn't want to pour gas on a deadly fire, but the fact that it existed says a lot. And after Pac's death, Jay didn't just shelve it quietly, he performed it live at the Apollo. According to DJ Clark Kent, the track was wildly disrespectful. Jay wasn't just rhyming, he was venting, like he'd been holding back for too long and finally snapped.
Filled them shoes though. You feel you came in and you know what I'm saying? So we definitely give thanks for you. You know what I'm saying? Because you definitely, came in and I just know how much Big like really looked up to Jay. You know what I'm saying? They looked up to each other. And yeah, that is crazy to have to step into the shoes of like two people, because that's all it was those two people, and they had like the game. They had things on lock. Hov was coming, you know what I'm saying? But like, it was like these two cats was just so big, you know what I'm saying? And then so it's like to have all of that, like, come on you and have that responsibility to keep this shit fly and keep the art of it going. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because I think Hov really kept Hov kept the art of it going and was able to take where they was at and take it, take it even higher.
But here's the question everyone's still asking. Why would Jay choose to perform that diss track after Pac was already gone? Well, according to those who were close to the scene, Jay wasn't just grieving. He might have been relieved. Word is, Jay always felt a certain pressure when it came to Pac. That larger-than-life energy, that untouchable legacy. Jay knew deep down he couldn't outshine that. And some say he didn't even try. Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal, even spilled that Jay was once so shook by Pac being in town, he refused to leave his Las Vegas hotel for a show. Not because of a schedule issue, because Pac and his crew were outside. That's how real the fear was, according to Gene. Fans have called Jay out for years, saying he was sneaky for never taking direct shots at Pac while he was alive. But behind the scenes, Jay and his East Coast circle were constantly throwing subliminals, slick little lines meant to poke at Pac emotionally. And it worked. They knew Pac would react, he always did. Old school rappers who were there at the time say Jay was flat out jealous. Pac didn't just have bars, he had that it factor, that raw charisma you can't manufacture. And Jay, he knew it. Even Nas threw some shade years later in an interview, hinting that Jay carried resentment toward both Pac and Biggie. And according to Nas, Jay even told him straight up, "I'm better than both of them." Nas once told Vibe something that had people raising their eyebrows. "We were kicking it," Nas said, and Jay told me he was better than Biggie. I looked at him like he lost his mind. Then he doubled down, said Tupac and DMX weren't even lyricists. That's when I had to check him. I told him straight, Tupac was the greatest, period. But that ain't the only reason fans call Jay-Z a snake. Let's not forget, Jay stayed tight with Diddy even after rumors started linking Diddy to Tupac's murder. After Pac and Biggie were both gone, Diddy started hyping up Jay as the one to carry their legacy, saying Jay was the chosen one to fill their shoes. And Jay, he embraced it, and he stood by Diddy for years through all the whispers, accusations, and dirty rumors. That is, until 2023 hit and that Cassie lawsuit exploded. Suddenly, Jay caught a case of amnesia, acting like he and Diddy were never even cool. Come on now. So what's really going on here? You've got Big Daddy Kane hinting at betrayal and disappointment, Tupac trying to warn everybody about the industry's snakes, and Jay-Z moving quietly, strategically, always a step ahead, but maybe stepping over a few bodies along the way. Let's be real. Jay didn't just borrow flows, he studied his mentors, rivals, and legends, and then outmaneuvered them. And now even some of the OGs are starting to speak out, saying Jay's rise to the top came with a heavy price, betrayal, ambition, and cold calculation. But what do you think? Was Jay just playing the game smarter than everyone else? Or did he cross a line? Did he really turn his back on Kane and fake the funk around Pac? And is the jealousy talk just noise? Or is there truth behind it? Drop your thoughts in the comment. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with a friend who loves hip-hop, and hit that bell so you never miss a drop. I'll see you in the next one.